The brand new tank to World of Tanks is of course here with the brand new season, and it is an Ultimate Season Pass tank. You guys know it by now if you've been keeping up with the videos. It is of course the Ruthless, and the Ruthless is a T110E4 hull, turret armor with a TNH hull armor that then has a FE 4005 gun. So yeah, a tank that can't be penned in the turret very easily. It can be, but for the most part it is not particularly too easy to do so. And we're going to have a look at exactly how you can make this thing work and what you're going to have to do to avoid getting taken out in this thing, and also being taken out by this thing, and how you can basically remove this from being a pain in the backside, as I'm sure if you've been playing over the last couple of days, you've been getting pounded by the Ruthless and having 4 on each team, if not more, per team. So this tank is of course the Season Pass Ultimate Edition, I guess, and essentially it costs you 6,000 gold to purchase, which gives you the 3D Hero Commander, it gives you a garage slot, it gives you the tank itself, gives you 25 levels of the Season Pass already complete, and gives you the Season Pass already. So essentially you will have 25 levels already complete, which is how we've managed to complete 25 levels in just a day of the season being released. Now, the Ruthless itself is a tier 10 mercenary vehicle, as you can probably expect, given that it has a 183 gun on an E4 on top of a Czech tank, or a Polish tank even. No, it is a Czech tank. Oh god, I'm having a nightmare. The E4, however, does have that good turret, or at least a reasonable turret, that can be basically bounced off of by most tanks in the game if they're not aiming properly and they're not going for the cupola and they don't have super high heat penetration to go through the cheeks of this thing. Now, you can go through the mantlet, so the area just below the turret of this thing if it manages to get hold down, but it is a TNH, so you can go straight through the upper plate if you manage to find it out in the open, and we'll be looking at some gameplay where you might see that later on. But more importantly, how have we kitted out this tank to make it work? Well, essentially what we've done is gone for the advanced loader to boost up the damage per minute of this vehicle. We have also been using improved ventilation to boost up the damage per minute of this vehicle, because it kind of sucks, as well as the accuracy as well, all featured within improved ventilation. It just improves various different items by a very small percentage, but it is across the board on loads of different items, so that's kind of why I use improved ventilation. Now, you could potentially swap it out for some speed, since this tank is pretty lackluster in terms of its weight to horsepower ratio, or horsepower to ton, with coming in at 11.79, which, yeah, I mean, it's nothing spectacular to say the least. But what you can do is, of course, improve that if you do go with the speed boost. But most importantly, we've gone with advanced reload because of the fact that what you can do is you can swap between your rounds without having to reload whatsoever. So if you've been following along on PC, you'll know what Intuition is, and Intuition used to be a perk on console. But Intuition on, or the new advanced reload perk that we now have, allows you to swap between your rounds without having to reload at all. So if I, for example, I come up against a super light tank, we are able to swap to our HE rounds, which deal 1650 damage compared to the 1150 damage of the standard AP rounds, which have the highest penetration of 310. So you can go through most tanks with 310. I mean, literally, like some of the super heavies in the game, you can pen straight through the front with 310 pen. So you don't really have any penetration issues with this vehicle. But you then have the opportunity to load the Hesh rounds, which have 230 pen, which is a slight decrease if we were to compare it to the FE 4005 of 10mm. So you are slightly worse in terms of your Hesh pen, but of course you get that turret, and you can brawl a lot better with the Ruthless than you can with the FE 4005 Stage 2, which, you know, you can see in the background aiming directly at us using our little garage infantry info now, I've been a bit stupid and decided to try and break where we can put our tanks, and you can see that in the garage our Excalibur is actually clipping through the box at which you're not supposed to be able to put any tanks in, and they also don't register the barrel of the tank, so you can stick your barrel in the garage. So I just thought I'd see if we could break it as much as possible, and of course we can. Now, the Ruthless is one of the tanks that I think is going to be really annoying to play. It's the equivalent of essentially everyone complaining about how annoying the AVRE is, because it can just basically splash people to death and pen people without even really aiming. And so Wargaming decided that, given the feedback about the AVRE, that what they'd do is they would decide to stick their middle finger up at everyone and release another Hesh round vehicle which doesn't have to aim and can deal splash damage as well. I guess that this can counter the AVRE, but even still, the AVRE has much better armor, and yeah, they have the same sort of gun. So brilliant idea by Wargaming to release yet another Hesh round tank that is super easy to play and basically rewards people for not aiming and just YOLOing in. Even though they probably get taken out very quickly, they can still really mess up people's games that, you know, have done absolutely nothing wrong. So it's always good when they release it, as well as the fact that they've then released it as part of the Ultimate Season Pass. So every man and their dog has one of these things rolling around in the garage with like 5 on each team, meaning that for tier 10 players or anyone playing tier 8 and above is going to be hating their life right now, because it's just full of 183mm guns, including the AVRE, the FV4005, the FV215B183, the Jaegeru, all of these high alpha damage guns, which, if you were to translate it to the PC version of World of Tanks, 850 was a little bit overpowered, so they reduced it to 750 on the tier 10 TDs. Console will be like, yeah, let's give more tanks 1400 alpha. Yeah, I don't know at this point, and I feel like what they're doing is just releasing more and more tanks that are just a little bit too strong in the game. But what can we do about it? Nothing. So let's find out how we can take these things out. So essentially, when you see it in the game, you want to be aiming for the hull armor. If you can't see the hull armor, you want to aim for that giant red cupola that you can see on the top of the vehicle. Or if you have 270mm plus of penetration and the tank is looking directly at you, which is a scary thought in its own right, you can pen it through the cheeks that you can see left and right of the gun mantlet, which is obviously where you can see the right and the left. So this is where you can pen it. It's really easy to do so if you have the penetration, but if you don't have the pen, it's just a big middle finger again. Now, obviously, you want to be trying to get around the side of the vehicle. If you can, it is super easy to pen. Like 80mm of armor on the side. Very, very nice to be able to just dominate. And essentially, this tank doesn't really have that much armor unless it finds itself hold down. And considering that it doesn't get the most amount of gun depression, 6 degrees, it's not insane, and I think for the most part this is just an annoying tank to play up against. Again, it's Wargaming's kind of, I'm not going to say lazy design, in fact I am. It's just another tank that is super easy to play, boring for pretty much everyone involved, probably boring for the people that are playing it, as I found when I was playing it, because of the fact that, yeah, you can do a ton of damage in one shell. You can't really one-shot anything, so it's not even like it's a meme, because they nerfed the 183s, quite rightly, obviously, dealing 1850 damage with Hesh that had like 270 pen, wasn't very balanced, but yeah, now it just becomes one of those tanks that's like, yay, I can deal a ton of damage, then I have a long reload and everyone pens me, so yeah, it's kind of one of those. This tank has better concealment than its alternative in the FV4005 by 60 meters. It gets slightly worse view range. And if we were to grab up another tier 10 British TD in the FV215B just for an example and to see exactly what it's like, and then if we were to bring up the medium as well, the AVRE, just for a little bit of an inspection, because, I don't know, why not? We can see exactly what these tanks are all about, and hopefully we'll be able to see that. Let's remove the FV4202 here, And there you go. Now we should have all of the tanks that we're kind of concerned with. Now the AVRE, obviously pretty much the same camo as the Ruthless, except it gets this a lot better spaced armor. The turret's very strong. It can be penned in the cupola and the top of the turret. You can pen the lower plate, but yet again, it's just annoying. But this tank has much worse accuracy. It also gets basically no degrees of gun depression over the front of the vehicle, whereas the Ruthless does get that gun depression over the front. And the turret armor is probably slightly better on the Ruthless unless you turn it side on. So yeah, very good tank. I really enjoy seeing how this one plays out, and I'm interested to see what you guys think of it, because at the end of the day, I've had a limited experience. I've played about, I don't know, 6 or 7 games at this point in the Ruthless to see what it's all about, whether it is as broken as I thought it might be or just annoying. And yeah, it's just in that annoying category like the AVRE is. I don't think either of them are ridiculously OP and going to be dealing 11k damage constantly, but they are just, yeah, annoying for people who play up against them, because what do you do? Can you poke one of these things when it's pre-aiming you? No, because it's going to pen you for 1,000. Yeah, it's just a boring tank to see in the game, and we only really needed a couple of them, and at this point we're just starting to get into the realms of having way too many of these high alpha TDs, and yeah, having another one is just annoying. So yeah, thumbs up to Wargaming for introducing this, even though everyone was complaining about the AVRE and the HESH spammers and stuff like that. So yeah, hopefully, given that we've done a little bit of a rundown, in terms of other things about the tank, you got more hit points than the FE, and you know, just generally pretty much the same sort of tank, just has that turret. So let's jump into some gameplay, see how it actually plays in game, and then let me know in the comments what you think. So we've got a really quick set of games to showcase in the gameplay portion of today's video, and that is mainly because when you've got so many high alpha TDs in the game right now at tier 10, the games don't last very long, surprise surprise, having so much alpha that can be dealt within a short period of time. So we're going to see what we can do in these matchups. Now this matchup is a decent one, we're able to deal a little bit of damage, but it also shows the weak points of this tank in that, you know, when you aren't hold down or you can't find positions to use that hold down mentality, it can really suck. But when you can corner fight and you can, you know, sit back and kind of hold angles and stuff like that, you can just deal an inordinate amount of damage. So starting off in this game on canals, we're going to push over towards the corner, so maybe we could catch someone out at the beginning of the game and deal a little bit of damage on someone. So we're pre-aiming this corner here to see if we can catch someone out. Maybe some other TD, maybe another version of the Ruthless is going to rock up thinking they're funny, and we'll be able to get a bit of damage. But so far, not to any avail. But one thing I want to kind of talk about with you guys is the state of the game whilst we're kind of hanging around and we're talking about tanks like this. It's a good point to actually really think about whether this game is going in the right direction with so many tanks like this, as we pen a Conqueror who got spotted for the first time for 1200. Very skillful aim shot there, not having to really fully aim with the accuracy that console get either. So yeah. Anyway, the state of the game at this moment in time, from my own personal opinion and just playing the game, it feels like Wargaming have kind of, they were in a good spot for a long time. I felt like the game was getting better, and I felt like it wasn't too bad. But since the introduction of a lot of the newer seasons, like maybe the last 2 seasons, it feels like since they removed the premium tech tree from being able to basically purchase any tank on the premium tech tree, Wargaming have been improving or increasing their kind of pressure on buying bundles and spending more money on the game, not giving you as good sales, and just generally like giving you tanks that are more and more overpowered. It felt like for a long time we were in an okay spot. Now premium tanks, some of them they were good, some of them were overpowered. Things like the FE-4211 on Cold War, very solid tank, but that was probably more of a case of it was a premium tank at the beginning of Cold War, where maybe when they didn't realize the balance. And since then they've just been kind of going around, you know, dealing and creating tanks that were actually not too bad, other than AVRE. But since the release of the AVRE, this tank and quite a few of the more recent stuff, it just feels like they've completely gone backwards on what they were originally doing. And I don't know if it's just for like short-term profit, maybe they weren't making enough money or something, but it feels like we're not getting a lot of the development that we wanted. We're not getting so many UI changes, and yeah, just in general, it just feels like they've kind of been lacking in that regard. Now, we've had a good few updates. I'm not going to say that we haven't. With regards to the garage update, I think it's cool. Are there some problems? Yes, you saw them where you can stick a load of tanks right next to your tank in the garage. I mean, granted, it's your own choice. It's only really affecting you. It's not going to cause any issues other than like it might look crap if you have a gigantic tank and your tanks surrounding it are kind of clipping into it. But you know, it's kind of these things where we should be seeing more of that sort of stuff, but it just seems like there's a lot of premium tanks being spammed out for the sake of spamming out premium tanks to try and earn some money. And that used to be the case in World of Tanks. Then they kind of changed it a little bit, kind of focus on development, and then it seems to be going back the other way. Now, there are some benefits. There are plenty of good changes that Wargaming make, but tanks like this feel a little bit lackluster. Now, in this game, you can see how kind of boring the playstyle of the Ruthless really is, and how annoying it is to try and push these things, especially in the current kind of way in which we're seeing World of Tanks being played. Is that there's a lot more campiness because no one wants to push into 4 Ruthlesses and an FE4005 or the FE215B183s and stuff like that, and it's really just a case of hoping that you don't get pumped by everyone. Now, in this game, we're kind of hoping to just try and get a little bit of damage. I see that there's a cheeky little Object 268V4. We get unfortunately hit by the Murat, which brings us low enough such that I'm thinking, uh-oh, there's a 60 TP that's going to hit us, and there you go, straight into the side armor. So we didn't bounce anything in that game, so the turret didn't really work. It didn't help us out because we didn't get hold down. We couldn't find any hold down positions, and although, you know, we made quite a few overcommitments and we pushed way too hard, we still picked up 5,000 damage in probably one of the most boring games I think I've had. So it's kind of one of those boring tanks. I've been saying it again, these high alpha TDs, they are boring to play, boring to get received upon, make the game slower, they slow the game right down, you can't push, and it's basically corner camping against tanks with high alpha. And that's the problem with things that we've been seeing. So let's jump into the next gameplay, see if there's any other changes to this tank and kind of different ways of playing it, because it's not all like this. I'm not going to be stupid enough to think that. Now, this next section, we're going to have a little bit of gameplay in the background so you can see exactly what I mean. We're playing on Erlenberg. It's a typical campy map where, you know, we can defend and use the armor a little bit and make a few misplays, as I do within this game as I was learning how to play this tank. Not that it takes a whole lot of learning, but I want to talk about the balance and how Wargaming are kind of moving forward with these vehicles, because it sucks to see more and more vehicles coming out like this, and I feel like they're missing out on the whole novelty concept that we see with some of the vehicles in the game, and kind of introducing tanks like the Ruthless, the AVRE, and adding in more tanks like this that are basically just replicas of other tanks and trying to make them justified by giving them more armor or, you know, stuff like that makes it really, really boring and just adds to this kind of stale gameplay where you're corner fighting, holding down a position, literally just pre-aiming positions to counter tanks that are actually trying to make a play, much like the artillery class, and it just means that it just becomes a stalemate in a lot of the games, and Erlenberg is just one of those. And it also just shortens the games. Like I said earlier, the games seem to feel very, very short at the minute with so many high alpha damage TDs in the gameplay, with, you know, half and half of the team being tank destroyers right now and the rest being, you know, half of the team being heavies, lights and mediums combined all into one. So yeah, it kind of sucks to see this kind of route in which Wargaming are going down. And I'd be interested to see what you guys think, because it really does really matter in terms of how we're feeling about the game. And right now, I feel like we're in a bit of a spot where they just keep pumping out tanks that are like this, that are overpowered, and they've kind of shifted away from what we were traditionally seeing with World of Tanks. I felt like they got it a little bit right in some cases, but yeah, in general, just feeling a little bit underwhelmed with how Wargaming have been performing. And what I'd like to see and talk about for the next little portion whilst you're seeing the gameplay in the background, is that we could do with seeing tanks that are kind of more novel, more unique, and just have a little bit of something extra that we don't typically see in the game. I mean, T49 with a dirt gun would be cool to see, you know, the high alpha damage but really, really slow, or something like that would be much cooler than seeing this thing in the game. And just having like a high alpha T49 that has horrendous accuracy but has horrendous aim time and just feels a little bit of a kind of lackluster in the gun department, but it can have that fun impact of having that high alpha if they're going to bring in more like this. Or alternatively, you know, an AMX 1375 with the dirt gun would be cool to see. And we haven't really seen very many ramming tanks in the game, and that would be cool to see. Although they may not be effective, it'd be nice to see a tank that can go really fast but has a little bit of ramming potential. I'm not saying that it has to be out and out broken, like, you know, you could just YOLO in and bounce everything and ram people and have a horrendous gun, but it would be cool to see a bit more of the kind of exploring other options than just these bog standard tanks that we seem to be getting. Or just go back to trying to actually make balanced tanks that have one good feature and the rest pretty mediocre / bad. But yeah, I guess that doesn't sell as much as the newer content, and that's the way I'm feeling about it. I'd love to see more content being developed around challenges and more reward vehicles that you don't have to pay for and stuff like that, but Wargaming just don't seem to be bothered. And that's really my thoughts and candid kind of thoughts about what I'm feeling like with the game development at the minute and the direction that it's going in. And yeah, I'm just one player, it's my own view. I mean, I get the tanks to review by Wargaming, but by no means, if you watch any of my videos, does it affect how I say some of their tanks are. I mean, some of them are brilliant, some of them I think they get like hit the nail on the head. I feel like it's balanced, it's good, it's okay, and then some of them are just outrageous, and we always try and give a decent explanation as to why some of these tanks are just broken or just annoying or inherently just bad for the game, and this is yet again another example, I think, because we didn't need it, I think, is the main thing. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below, and of course if you want to check out the full update news, you can see the garage, how it works, the new maps as well, because there are a few new maps in the game including fjords, and we've also seen more recently maps like mines coming into the higher tiers, I believe. We've also seen Svorogorsk and a whole load of other maps as well, which are nice, and the more maps that we have, just the more variety, and I think that's good in general, and it'd be nice to see some kind of different tanks being developed is my general consensus, and just kind of build upon the core kind of features of the game and actually start improving, you know, the challenges, season challenges and stuff like that, because they're very boring. I mean, dealing 1,000 damage 50 times is not actually a fun challenge, is it? Let's be real, that's just play like 50 games for the average person at tier 10. So yeah, I mean, let me know what you think, and I'll try and feed it back to Wargaming, and I am focusing on just collating a whole host of questions and really picking it down. I've been kind of deliberating over it because I really want the Q&A to be kind of something that we can produce to Wargaming, and give them something substantial to think about, and maybe it will work. I mean, I don't hold any hope, but you never know, it might actually be beneficial, and it's better than saying you need to do better Wargaming. Here you go, there's nothing to kind of for them to think about or anything like that other than you need to do better, and they go off and try something completely new when it doesn't work, and then we all get angry. So yeah, let me know any kind of things that you want me to ask them in the comments, and I'll add it to my ever-growing list of stuff that you guys have been awesome doing, and I really appreciate all of the support on the videos. It's been amazing, and hopefully you've enjoyed this review. Don't forget, this video on screen right here will show you all of the new features of this new kind of update, and of course new season. And if you want to watch some gameplay and tank reviews, they'll be on screen as well, and I see you in the next one. Goodbye.